Alright, in this example, we have an equation, negative 5x equals 9n squared plus 8m to the third power. It's asking you to solve for n. So you take a look at n, it has an exponent of 2. So, this is the part where we have to follow the opposite of our exponent. So, since the n has the power of 2, meaning square, the opposite is square root. Now, if you were using the same problem but it was asking you to solve for m, here m has the power to the third or cube. The opposite of to the third or cube is cube root. So, let's solve this example where it says solve for n. What you're going to do is I'm going to cancel out the 8m to the third. So minus 8m to the third minus 8m to the third. So here, I'm going to write it in terms of exponents. So the highest exponent is going to go first. So negative 8m to the third, and then minus 5x, and then equal 9n to the second power. Now in order to get n squared to be by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by 9. So here we're going to keep it as one big fraction because there's nothing in common between 8 and 9. There's nothing in common between 9 and 5. Especially when we have an exponent, so we're going to keep it together. So negative 8m to the third minus 5x over 9 equal to n squared. Alright, now the opposite of square is square root. So I'm going to square root the right side. Since I square root on the right side, I'm going to square root the left side. Alright, so once I do that, I can't square root the top, but I can actually square root on the bottom. So when it's dividing like this, you can rewrite it like this. The square root of negative 8m to the third minus 5x over the square root of 9 equal to n. Now when you're solving, keep in mind that when you do the square root, you have to include plus and minus. Because when you do the square root of any number, you're always going to have two answers when you're solving. When you're simplifying, you don't need the plus and minus. But when you're solving, you do need to have plus and minus. Just if you're doing square root. So repeat, only if you're doing square root. Now the reason I wrote square root for the numerator and square root on the denominator is because you can do the square root of 9. So when you simplify, so n will equal to plus or minus. So the top will stay the same because you can't simplify it. So it will be the square root of negative 8m to the third minus 5x over the square root of 9. It will become 3. So that's why I split the numerator and the denominator separately with the square root. So again, I did that because I knew that you can do the square root of 9. And this will be our final answer. So again, when you're solving for a variable and you're doing a square root, make sure to include the plus and minus when you're solving. If you're simplifying, you don't need that plus and minus. Alright, in this part, we're going to use the same equation, but now it's asking you to solve for m. You want to get m by itself. So, first step is I want to cancel out the 9n squared. So I'm subtracting on the right and on the left. And I'm going to put it in terms of exponents, so the highest goes first. So negative 9n squared minus 5x equals to 8m to the third. Now, next, I'm going to divide both sides by 8. Divide both sides by 8. I mean, the left side by 8. And I'm going to keep it as one fraction because, again, nothing in common between 9 and 8. Nothing in common between 5 and 8. And especially when you're working with exponents, it's best to keep it as one big fraction. So what we're going to have is negative 9n squared minus 5x over 8 equal to m to the third power. Now, on the right side, it's m to the third power, or m cubed. The opposite of that, since it has an exponent to the third power, and you want to get m by itself, the opposite is cube root. Cube root is when it has the 3 on the outside, like this. So I'm going to cube root also on the left side. Now, this is also another thing you have to know about your exponents. You can do the cube root of 8. So what I'm going to do is, just like before, I'm going to write the cube root for the numerator and for the denominator. And I can't simplify the cube root of the numerator, so it's going to stay as cube root of negative 9n squared minus 5x as the numerator, and the cube root of 8 in the denominator. The cube root of n to the third is just m. Alright, I'm almost finished. So, all we're going to do is just simplify the denominator, which is the cube root of 8. The numerator will stay the same because there's nothing you can simplify for the negative 9n squared minus 5x with the cube root. So it stays the same on the top. So make sure you have 3 as the outside if you're doing the cube root. The cube root of 8 will be 2. Because if you were to do 2 to the third power, it's 2 times 2 times 2, which will equal to 8. So that's why you're able to do the cube root of 8. Now, the difference between this example and the last one is that when you're doing the cube root or odd root, you don't need the plus and minus. In the last example, since we were doing square root, you do need the plus and minus. Here, since we're doing the cube root, you don't need it. So, this will be my final answer. M equals to the cube root of negative 9n squared minus 5x over 2.